And Ford is looking into the future and has released its Looking Further with Ford 2015 report. And joining us to discuss the emerging trends that will impact society and the auto industry is Sherryl Connelly, futurist at the Ford Motor Company. Sherryl, good to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me.
So Sherryl, in this report, you've highlighted some of the major socio-economic trends that are going to impact both the auto industry and, in fact, industries across the span. And one of the distinctions that you make is Generation Z. Now, with all of these classifications, how is Generation Z different from millennials?
So the world has spent a great deal of time looking at the millennials, and they are an extremely relevant cohort. But we think it's time to look beyond them and say, what's next? We're looking at the segment of the population that's under 21 years of age, and they comprise 2 billion people worldwide. So their influence will be felt for a very long time.
And what are the defining characteristics of Gen Z?
So if you think about your baby boomer, for instance, you think about activism. You know, they were raised during a period of social unrest. Gen Xers, who are a bit younger, were entrepreneurial in spirit. They were raised during a recession. Millennials were raised during a period of economic prosperity, and academics were a critical focus for them. But in the wake of the global recession, many of them find themselves underemployed or unemployed. And so when we compare that to this upcoming generation, academics are still important, but they're really focused on experience, and they're saying, why wait? Let's make great things happen right now.
And in your study, you showed that experience counts more than education. One of the other interesting points in your study was linked to rebellion. Now, society has always had a soft spot for rebels and for risk takers, but more so now when there are platforms poised to help them, like Kickstarter, for example. But what I found was interesting was the geographic disposition towards a rebellion. And according to your study, 57% of Chinese people under 35 said that they're drawn to companies and brands are rebellious. That was more so than any other country. The US, for example, just coming in with 44%, 46%. Why is it that the Chinese are feeling more rebellious?
You know, we were really surprised by that number as well. We field these surveys globally, and then we try to do some regional comparisons. And when those numbers came in, we were caught a little off guard. But when I stand back about it and think it through, it seems to me that China, more so than any other country in the world, has gone through this extraordinary transformation. And so it's not surprising at all that that transformation is driven by rebels and renegades. People are trying to challenge convention and do things in a new and breakthrough way.
So what's a rebellious brand?
So 23andMe, I think, is a really interesting case study. They were a company that for $99 would do a genetic testing and give you information about your health profile, the probabilities or your vulnerability to disease, but they also gave you breakdown on your ethnicity and parentage. They found that a number of people found out that their father didn't actually turn out to be their father. Some fascinating information. And the FDA put some restrictions on it. So they're still going through some evolution, but their ideas are certainly unconventional.
Sherryl, from rebellion, we want to talk about failure. And your report has shown that the stigma of failure has been removed. It's okay to fail as long as you try. If at first you don't succeed, try and try again. And the country that's embracing failure or sees that failure is less of a stigma for adults over 35 was Germany with 57%. Now that was a little surprising given the cultural associations that we have with the Germans of precision and for perfection. How do you explain that?
Well, we do believe it's rooted, just like you said, in the first you don't succeed, try again. But what this trend is calling out is that people are sharing their stories. There are literally conventions where people come together and talk about nothing but their stories of failure. And we know that it's a component to learning and advancing innovation.
Let's talk about the sharing economy, and that is linked in with our fear of commitment, apparently.
We call it the no strings attached trend. And, you know, it takes many forms. Some people call it collaborative consumption. But those things were originated out of sustainability issues. We think the no strings attached is all about this commitment phobia. Society wants to sample goods, and innovation moves so rapidly, they want to try new things.
So is that where we get the rent the runways being successful, the Airbnb? And how does that translate to somebody making a long-term commitment of buying a car, for example?
So exactly, Rent the Runway is a girl's best friend, just like Beg, Borrow, and Steal. And when it comes to car buying, we know that millennials or younger people may not have the financial resources for the cars that they want, or may live a lifestyle that they don't need it. So our partnerships with companies like Zipcar, which changed the rental model to selling cars 1 hour at a time, have served us really well. And in fact, when people leave that model and decide that they need their own vehicle, Ford is among the top of their consideration set.
So Cheryl, a number of other trends that came out, but more importantly, the carry less movement, people not wanting to be weighed down by things, the many faces of mobility. But very quickly, how does all of this then tie back into the product and design strategy of Ford?
Well, a lot of people don't realize that it takes us 3 years to execute a concept to bring it till the rubber hits the road, so to speak. So these ideas push us to challenge the status quo. The trend that you just mentioned, the many faces of mobility, talks about how when I say mobile, for some people it means phones. Other people it means moving around, transportation. And these underpinnings set the foundation for Ford Motor Company's blueprint for mobility.
All right, well, we look forward to see what Ford has in store for us in the future. Thank you so much, Sherryl Connelly, futurist at the Ford Motor Company.